WNST, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We head to Las Vegas. I'm wearing my Skipjacks gear. I got my Courage hat. I've got my game face on. It's the Stanley Cup Finals, and as much as we want to take all this seriously and we want to win, I at least want to have a good time on the journey, and I keep preaching that to my friend Rob Carlin, who is out there amidst the diamond in the desert awaiting all this madness. They're going to drop the puck, and there's going to be like tension in the beginning, but then it's going to be this long, grinded-out series, right, Rob? I mean, this thing's going 6 or 7. At least that's the way I'm planning it.
That's the way I'm planning it, too. I mean, it's two really, really good teams, two teams coming in, playing really good hockey right now, two teams that have good goalies right now. The Caps are in the Cup for the first time in 20 years, second time ever. I feel pretty confident they're going to win their first Stanley Cup game after being swept the first time. And, I would anticipate 6 or 7. They asked, our station puts up on our website with all our predictions. And I put on their Caps in 6, and they bring the Cup out to the steps outside the arena to celebrate with the fans afterwards. So it's going 6 or 7.
Well, 6 would be incredible, right? That's a dream scenario to win at home. 4's too much to ask. But, in the midst of all of this madness, I'm trying to take, a breather. And I think it was a very good breather to get back from Tampa, to wash the laundry, to deal with the fever, to deal with everything they needed to deal with. It has been an incredible week. And I guess, I kid you about being an Islanders guy. Same thing with Beninati. And we've often wondered what it would look like in the modern era. And amidst all the disappointment that I think all of the old school people like myself have from LaFontaine and, Kelly Rudy back in the day. So, whether it was that or whether it was, the next era, and I saw Ole Kolzig, and I thought that was apropos in the elevator on the ride after Game 7, who was a skipjack, of course, and that, part of their history. And then there's this Ovechkin thing that has always had such promise, such, at some point you feel like you're going to win because you've got a Peyton Manning, you've got a John Elway. That doesn't mean it happens early. And I think there's a sense of appreciation for all of this, but also an incredibly professional calm that the guys that have felt this disappointment of carrying those golf clubs, in early May, in late April in some cases, the Backstroms, the Carlsons, the Hopis, the Trotzes, the guys that have been down this road, that there is nothing about being here that is particularly exhilarating, especially if they're carrying golf clubs 10 days from now and they lose this thing in 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, they really are enjoying this ride. I mean, that's the thing that keeps getting me is when you ask them what it is about this team, and you hear this a lot. It's not that they're, groundbreaking their comments, but when something like this happens to a team, it just, they don't want it to end. Alan May always talks about you win games in the playoffs, you win a series in the playoffs. It is such a high that you chase after, and it's a collective group thing. Imagine 20-some-odd guys all experiencing that same high together, and they are in desperate pursuit of riding that as long as they possibly can. And this is that same kind of group. It's why when guys retire, they say that's the thing they miss the most is being around the boys, and they are just appreciating this right now, mainly because, if you came to either me or you or Joe B or Locker, in, late February, early March, and said, do you think this team has the makeup to make a run to the Stanley Cup? I don't think anyone would have said that at that time. I mean,
I would have because, you know what? I never not believed in Holtby. I mean, for what it's worth, I always felt like plug him in April. I said that when Grubauer played. I said, look, and I remember talking to Doug McClain about this. You're paying him to be an April or a May goalie. And I know, look, when the book is written, they're either going to win or lose this week on Holtby, right? I mean, I don't think we'll see Grubauer in Game 5. That would shock me. But the way the whole story has been written, that they're here now, I always believed in Holtby. I always felt like he was going to give them the best chance because I sense that I was at his locker last year, after Game 7, and I sense what that meant to him. And I don't think there's any getting up for an October, November, December, January. Any of those games matter other than those kinds of games that he played last week in Game 6 and 7. Those are the games that matter. And when you get to this level, you're not judged on anything that happens on a Tuesday night in, let's say, Colorado, which apparently changed the team's fortunes back in December, right?
Right, but that's the thing. This season of all seasons, there were only relative highs and then some pretty bad lows, and that's under winning another division title. So it always kind of felt like the rest of the division wasn't good enough to take it from them because the Caps kind of dangled it out there. Like they went on runs where they just weren't playing great hockey, and your goalie is benched, and Oshie goes through, 20-some-odd games without a goal, and Backstrom went through a long stretch this season. There were just all these things that happened throughout the year. You start the season starting 2 rookies. Your big moves at the trade deadline, or what we thought at the time were depth defensemen. Who knew Kempney was going to be, a top pair? But, all these things happened, and you're just like, I don't know. I don't know what the ceiling is. I agree with you on Holtby. When it went south, it was stunning, and you knew at some point 70 was going to get called on again, and he was going to probably come up big because, kind of like Ovi, he gets a lot of bad rap for the playoffs, but it's almost half his, maybe dipped a little bit now, but it was close to half of his playoff starts in his career. He allowed 2 goals or less. You're losing these games 2-0, when the offense comes up small in these Game 6s and Game 7s historically. But it just felt like this team didn't have it, whatever it is, and it really only happened in Game 3 against Columbus where things started to really change, and all of a sudden you went from being like, man, same old Caps to, no, there's something different. There's something different about this group. And it was in that first round series, and I remember tweeting that out there at some point. It was pretty sure it was during the Columbus series, and people tweeting back at me and saying, no, there's nothing different with this team. You keep saying that until they prove. And I was like, I'm just telling you, being around it and watching it as closely as I am with the people that I get to watch it with, there's something different. And now you're seeing what it is. So, yeah, I think that core group that you talked about knows how important this is for them, because if they didn't make this run, good chance Carlson's not back. There's still a good chance Trotz is not back. There's a good chance they're looking to trade one of their big name, because, how many times can we do this? So I think they all appreciate the when as much as the how and the why right now.
Rob Carlin is our guest. You, of course, can find him anywhere that our friends at NBC Sports down in D.C. are following the Cavs. Give everybody a story of your life. You're Facebook Live, and 1 minute it's you and Locker, 1 minute it's you and Locker's daughter, the next minute it's you and Malamé, and the next minute, Beninati's. You're not calling the games anymore, so you wind up with sort of this all-star cast of opinions and in real time, and there's going to be a lot of analysis going on. That's one of the reasons I'm telling good old hockey stories here in week 1, because this thing isn't really about game 1 or 2 as I see it. I think this thing will turn the corner 2-2 going back to Vegas for game. I just see this as that's the way hockey's played. I think that's the way these teams have played, that there's not going to be nobody's going to get pushed around in this series. I don't think. And I just love all the storylines of, beating Tortorella, beating the black and gold, then, overcoming this incredible thing with all these pesky Ranger types and Esposito and Yzerman and, all these championships and all that. And now it's the McVie thing and the Fleury thing, who's sort of the last dragon to be slayed in all of this, right?
Yeah, it's the Ovi revenge tour. He knocked off Torts. He knocked off Sid. He finally knocks off all these ex-Rangers.
It's how to beat Tom Brady one time.
Right. I mean, so this is it. This is the last piece. It's not McPhee as much as it is Fleury. Fleury's the guy that has always been out there and stood in the Caps' way. And by the way, he may be playing the best he's ever played in his career. He is dominating right now in these playoffs.
Well, that's how they get here. I mean, you don't get here without that happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, he has been ridiculously good. So, yeah, again, I agree. I think that this is going to be probably 2-2 heading back here. As for what we do at NBC Sports Washington, I mean, it is true, man. It was maybe before Game 6, and we do our pregame shows. We do hour-long pregame shows before the game on our station. We're out on F Street, and at one point, I host it, but then I stepped down, and I think I'm trying to remember, it was Joe B., Allen, Craig, and maybe Locker and maybe Koken, the four of them up on the set, and they did a block together. So I was down kind of watching it. I'm looking up, and I just thought, man, fuck am I that I get to work with these guys covering this team. Like, that's it. That's the whole, the last 35 years or whatever have been covered by these guys or played, Allen playing. And I took a picture and I tweeted it out. I was like, man, sometimes I just have to step back and, think about how lucky I am to do what I'm doing.
The kid from the island, right? Exactly, right?
Yeah, I mean, here it is, like, you're a part of, and that's the cool thing about doing a pregame show is, people come, when I went to, must have been Tampa, it was Tampa for Game 1, and there was a kid waiting for me when I got off the plane. He was on the plane with me, recognized me, he's in a Caps jersey, and I come walking up, and he kind of waved at me, and I looked back, waving at me. I don't know who this kid is. And I walk up, and he's like, hey, I saw you on the plane, and I watch you all the time. And I was like, you do? I was like, how old are you? He's like, I think he's like 10 years old. And he started rattling off all these things and things that we had said and what he agreed with and didn't, and all this stuff. And I looked at his mom, and I kind of, I gave a look like, who is this kid? And she was like, he watches you guys all the time. He's such a diehard fan. This means so much to him. And we kind of joked, and we walked away, and I saw her hugging him, like she was so happy for him. And I just started thinking, like, if I was that kid growing up an Islander fan back in the day, and I got to, meet the pregame host, who was probably Stan Fischler back in the day, I also would have been like, oh, my God, what a great moment. So you're part of this family that you all experienced this together, the TV crew, everyone, and now we're part of it. And yeah, we're just throwing out content as much as we can. Facebook Lives in the morning of games, from morning skate, and our pre and post game shows, which is an hour leading in. Then there's the show before us as well. We do an hour plus, depending on how big the game is afterwards. So it's just, it's just an awesome, awesome experience. As much as the players are enjoying this, we are enjoying this immensely because, come around.
I could be watching the Orioles right now or something, right?
Right, exactly. Alan May could be sitting at home not getting paid right now. Joe B. and Locker could be home not getting paid right now. So, yeah, I mean, this is, and we were joking, me and one of the photographers, obviously you were covering the Ravens long before I was as a Baltimore guy, but, I got to cover a Ravens Super Bowl in New Orleans, and now a Cap Stanley Cup in Las Vegas.
Oh, dude, it's not lost on me that, like, the bucket list thing of covering a Stanley Cup team, that's something I've never done, right? And so from a professional standpoint, I mean, I'm almost using this whole week to do nothing but call on all my hockey nerd buddies like you and to sit here and just say, pinch me, pinch all of us. We've all wondered and waited, and we get to do it in Las Vegas, which is kind of crazy.
I know.
It almost feels like a neutral site to some degree,
Well, I'll tell you, we got here, and I understand what the Vegas flu is, man. It got the best of me. It got the best of me on our first night here. So I'm already playing catch up in a number of different ways. But yeah, if you're gonna do the Stanley Cup, sure as hell beats Winnipeg.
No. Come on, we're not going to have you disparage Winnipeg and the whiteout. I had everything ready. Come on, I had my travel plan. I had a room. I mean, I had it all worked out because I thought Winnipeg would be the ultimate place to do this. Look, it wouldn't have mattered to me if it was Timbuktu. I mean, Nashville would have been great. San Jose would have been great. This is, I think, a little bit more delicious from a Caps fan's perspective to say, I'll go out there for 5 or 7. But I will say this, and I told my son this, as well as my wife who's not going out out this week because she's been under the weather. I'm trying to get her out there for 5 and or 7. That what the Caps have done down there at the arena, I said to my son, dude, go down there for game 1 or 2 or game, 5 or 7 or whatever it would be.
Parties?
Because, DC's going to be alive with Caps fever. I mean,
totally.
And this is a real chance for them to grow the franchise in every way and to create a memory, to create something magical that happens here over the next 2 weeks that a 10-year-old and a 50-year-old would latch onto and say, well, that was something, the day the Caps skated the Stanley Cup, right?
Yep. They far out, exceeded their own expectations at viewing party for when they won Game 7. That was, we have our stage manager that works with us when we do these games. So she's just kind of, help making sure we're in the right place, making sure we have our scripts and everything we need. And she was at that viewing party and texted me, and she's like, there's got to be 11,000 people here. They're totally understaffed for this. If they had more people here, they would have had to open the upper bowl. She's like, this is incredible. And we were even like, as our producers got in our ears or, called us and said, hey, we're going to take, live looks at the viewing party. We were all like, man, I hope there's a few thousand people there. Like, I hope this isn't a disment. Because you just never know.
You know what, Rob? A couple stories for you on that. When the Ravens did their second parade, they were understaffed people were hanging out of the stadium, right? And Dick Cass still said we had meetings, we talked about it, we just didn't think that was possible. We didn't think that many people would come. And my history with this is 20 years ago, and one of the pictures popped up my timeline. I did a baseball trip to Cleveland and the old Tiger. It was the last year Tiger Stadium, so whatever, 98, 99, whatever year that was. And we did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Football Hall of Fame. And it was, and the Orioles played in Cleveland and Detroit that week, so Oriole games. It was just a neat little 4-day little getaway, and we all went. But in the middle of it, on that Sunday, at like 4 in the afternoon, the Red Wings were playing the Colorado Avalanche in a semifinal, Western Conference semifinal. And it was in Colorado. And I said, I only had one bus. There were 40 people. It was a democracy. I said, do you guys want to go over and do this and hang out and see hockey at the Joe Louis Arena? Because these were sports nerds. They wanted to see an arena. We went over there, paid $10 to get in, and it was magical. I mean, they had the octopus. They had the game on the big screen, and there were 12,000 people in Joe Louis Arena. It was probably game 4, game 3. It was early in that series, but it was a BFD, and I remember being a part of one of those viewings, and 20 years later to be able to have the Capitals have that and my son to be able to go down and take part in that, it really is kind of cool. I mean, it is a vibe that is... it's not replicable because it won't happen again. You have to be in the Stanley Cup Finals to do it, Right,
and it's sort of organic in that moment. You don't know what it's going to be like. Like Dick Cass said, you plan it, and you have all the people that should know this the best, and then it just sort of happens, and then, and they won that game, and the spillover into the streets on F Street and the chanting on the stairs. I mean, we were in Tampa, absolutely where we wanted to be at Game 7 doing post-game shows, and every time we'd go to commercial, I can take another look at the crowd, we were like, I kind of want to be there. That looks amazing. These fans were going bananas, and that was just the Eastern Conference Final. So I could not imagine what it would be like, if this long-suffering fan base in this city that has grown to expect the worst to always happen, it would be awesome, and especially for the Caps because they've been the ones, other than the Nats, and they're still relatively new in the whole world of DC sports disappointment. The Caps have sort of done it the best, the longest. So it's fitting that that's the organization in DC that is finally experiencing this and giving this for fans because they probably should have been here before. So I just, I think it's awesome for the fan base and I hope your son goes, and I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be cool.
You can go find Rob Carlin anywhere. Caps are sold. Rob Carlin, NBCS, out on Twitter, as well as, of course, at NBC Sports during, before, after, middle of the first overtime, second overtime, because all that's going to be happening this week. Last thing for you, and I'll let you go, and we'll try to get together maybe a week from now and sort of reset things here after Game 4, let's say, or whatever. Ovechkin, just in general, the weight of the world on him, and how likable he's become, even for Canadian people that hate him. You know what I mean? And look, at a time where, the Russian-American thing is very real in my household, I assure you, and the guy that lives a few blocks away from the arena certainly has his answering to do. And, I'm not going to get political on it, but it's always political when, it's United States and Russia and whatnot. But, he has endured a lot of abuse. Some may, brought on by his own demeanor, his own, period and dips during his career. But there can be nothing but respect for where he is right now throughout the hockey community. And there's a lot of people, much like LeBron, who was a love him, hate him guy, that if you loved him or hated him, maybe you've warmed to him a little bit because, boy, he plays the game well.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yes, there's some of it that has been deserved over the years. But most of it I've found to be unfair. I mean, sure, do you want him to be a full 200-foot complete hockey player sacrificing his body and doing all those things? Well, of course. But he's also a unique animal. That's just not how he was built and not what he was paid an extraordinary amount of money to do. And, it costs him the playoffs sometimes, but I think more times than not, he was the only one that did score half the time in the playoffs. They were, historically have got nothing from anyone else with Ovi around.
Well, it's kind of wild with him and Wilson running around out there because it's like they might hit you, they might not hit you. They might go through you, they might go around you. It's a fascinating dynamic of toughness that isn't always there, and especially with Wilson where – if he shoves a guy the wrong way, he might get a double minor for it at this point. But for Ovechkin, he can be so physical, but doesn't have to be. He can have touch when he wants to.
And he wore down Tampa in the last round. I mean, he was really physical and still kept up the goal scoring. And, as I've said a number of times, the Mike Tyson comment, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. He punched Tampa in the face 62 seconds in the Game 7. And that changed that whole game. It changed the whole feeling in the building. And I like greatness. I like individual greatness. I'm a LeBron guy. I'm a Tiger guy. Show me the best, and I want to watch that because it doesn't come around that often. So Ovi's been the best goal scorer on the planet for 13 years. And it really hasn't been close. And all these guys who we thought, Laine might give him a run and Stamkos might give him a run. Here he is at 32, 33 years old, still winning a scoring title, still pushing 50 goals in the season, and now having a career-best playoff run. So I think it would be I know there's a ton of people that want Vegas because of the storybook, and they'll make it a movie and yada, yada, yada. Ovi, at this point in his career, to finally lift the cup, and then there's nothing anyone could ever say about him ever again. It would, Steve Yzerman won his cup late in his career. Ovi wins his cup late in his career.
Bork won his late in his career, needed to be dealt to do it, right?
Who'd you say?
I said Bork.
Right, exactly. And that's it. If and when he does do this, he just goes down in history.
Well, Elway was another. We could name some guys that it took them a little while, and they had to wear that collar until they did. And A-Rod was another guy, that forever, right, had that going on. Yeah, he's good, but, his ring finger is nude, and that's what this week is all about. And, I really tip my cap to Barry Trotz. My relationship with him. I haven't found anybody that has anything negative to say about Barry, but they were firing him back in February and March, and he was the village idiot when he sent Grubauer out there in Game 2, right? And he was, quote-unquote, out-coached in various series, in various ways. Boy, there's not a blemish on him over the last 5 weeks, right?
Yeah, every button he's pushed has been the right button. And, look, Grubauer was the right call. It was the right call to start Game 1. It was the right call to start Game 2. And it was the right call to pull him the third period of game two. Everything he did there was right. And, whatever line combinations he's put together, it just has all worked right now. So happy for him as well. That's been the knock on him, and they're all doing this together and experiencing the run. So it's fun. About to head over to media day now. So
well, hey man, rest up. All right, rest up. We will see you in Vegas, in Washington, in Vegas, back and forth, up all night. Always a pleasure. Everything you guys do is awesome. We're going to send everybody out to watch you all week, and let's have some good mojo. Let's go win a Stanley Cup here, Rob Carlin.
I'm all for it, Nestor. Thanks for having me on.
You got it. Rob Carlin joining us here from Comcast, former Comcast Sports. And I knew I was going to make that mistake. I always do that. NBC Sports. So there you go. We'll edit that out. Maybe. I don't know. Formerly of Comcast Sports. That's what we could say. I could say for Coke and formerly of Home Team Sports because he said it himself. It's been that long. You can find him at Rob Carlin, NBCS. And, of course, at NBC Washington. They'll be doing all the action for the next 2 weeks. I'm assuming it's going to last at least 2 weeks. We'll see. We're out in Vegas all week. Ed Frankovic joins me there. You can follow him at Ed Frankovic, us at WNST.net. We're also out in the Buy a Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships directly to your email inbox free of charge at 7 a.m. each and every morning, powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month, as well as our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club. We're a little more Pimlico, then back to Laurel. Racing season at a beautiful Preakness, and now we have a Belmont chance coming up next weekend as well as we inch closer to Justify and Bob Baffert. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST.net, where we never stop talking hockey, the Caps, the Stanley Cup, and Baltimore sports.